Hello everyone and welcome back. Today's video is for educational purposes only, and we'll be discussing a few more mental health related topics. Today especially we're going to be covering aspects related to intense emotions, especially intense emotions like anger, maybe after a tough match or a loss or something, or even when we make a slight error in our play, and how we kind of can recover from that anger or intense emotion to be ready for the next match we have or the next tournament we will play into. So let's jump over into that and we'll get rolling. So anger or frustration. Why do we experience it? Well, according to sports psychologists, people often get mad after losing or making a large mistake because of a combination of emotional, cognitive, and social factors. But is anger always good or bad? Well, research shows it can be both, or a little bit more of one or a little bit more of the other. We can use anger and frustration to help better our performance as a motivating factor or as a driving factor. Or we can use it as a self-destructive factor when that can lead to negative aspects of our interpersonal community and experience of the holistic experience of our hobbies, or the competitive factor, and can also lead to burnout and us disengaging from the activity we enjoy most. So what are some of the emotional aspects related to triggering or causing that frustration or intense anger? So some of the high stakes competitors often invest a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of emotion into their performance. So when they do that and the performance doesn't lead to a successful outcome, we look at that as a waste, right? Our mind builds up this thing of, okay, I put this much effort, so I should get this much reward. And when I don't get that reward, there's a natural letdown to that. And then also, like, that letdown can lead to kind of a barrier to our goals and our desires, whether that be higher levels of performance, winning a certain competition, or even your weekly league night, winning pins and promos. Like, that can be a barrier to achieving some of those goals we set for ourselves. So next, let's look at kind of some of the ego and some of the identity pieces that are wrapped up into kind of those emotional factors, right? Self-worth, right? Some athletes and competitors tie their self-worth, part of their identity, into winning, right? People really are passionate about this hobby and really feel passionate about their skill level. So when they don't perform at that level, it really attacks a more core part of their identity. And if anyone has known that, kind of when that core part of you gets attacked, there's a natural response to that, right? Public image, right? Losing in front of a lot of people, whether it be teammates, fans, friends, and our peers, we can feel embarrassed, we can feel humiliated, and that can trigger a whole litany of defense mechanisms for ourselves that can lead to anger, can lead to that frustration, and can lead to that intensity of emotion. Because again, what we're looking at right now is the intensity of the emotion, not the emotion itself. A little bit of anger, no big deal. An intensity of the anger can be really destructive to our performance, play, community building, and overall satisfaction with the hobby. Next is kind of like a perceived injustice, right? That blaming the other people, whether that we feel like we've lost due to unfair judge call, or cheating on the opponent, or a bad luck, a bad draw, or even blaming others for encouraging us to play certain decks or certain archetypes that maybe didn't underperformed inside of that tournament, right? If we feel like there was an injustice taken upon us, we tend to respond with that intensity of emotion. And that also plays right into a feeling of loss of power and control. When we do feel like we've lost some power and control, that feeling of powerlessness really can kind of hit at a core part of ourselves and our perception of our surroundings and our agency. That's the good word I'm looking for. And that can really lead to some high level of emotional reactivity. And then next is some biological responses, right? When our body feels like it's experiencing a a threatening, whether that be emotional or mental threatening experience, that can trigger our fight or flight response, right? That's our body's natural response to a perceived threat that releases our excitatory hormones, our stress hormones that engage our fight or flight system. And sometimes that can lead to an intensity of emotion due to not only the neurochemicals that are released, but also the natural body's response to that level of stimulus. So, there can be a biological factor in there as well. And then also just this cognitive perception of perfectionism and a real unrealistic expectation, right? We're all going to get bad draws. We're all going to get bad matchups. We're all going to have these experiences where we get into slumps and we lose matches we shouldn't, and we lose matchups we shouldn't, and we lose to people we feel like we might have a little bit better skill than they do. But those are going to happen. So those high standards we place on ourselves, right? If I climb that mountain, that I fall really far down that mountain, I'm going to feel very discouraged. If I versus falling very a little bit down that mountain, I don't feel as discouraged. I didn't feel like I lost as much, right? That intensity comes with that perception of this kind of high personal standard, and when it kind of falls, we feel like we've lost something. So we feel our body naturally responds with a emotional response to the intensity or the magnitude of that loss we feel like we're experiencing. And then, that aspect of being overconfident is the same thing. I build it up to be really high, and then when it comes crashing down, my body's naturally going to have a reaction to that crash. And sometimes that reaction isn't necessarily healthy for us, our peers around us, might be our friends, and the whole community that we're trying to build. So what can we do? What can we do to reduce anger, the intensity and duration of anger? Because it's not about getting rid of anger as a whole, because like we said before, some forms of anger can be healthy, right? They can drive us to push, to be better, to perform better, to do better. But the aspects of anger that take us away from our ability to engage with the peers around us, and also can lead us to engage in maybe some toxic behaviors inside of the community. So the first one is kind of changing the conversation with yourself, right? The first big one is our self-talk is really important, and understanding that we have this internal kind of 0 to 10 scale. And if we don't control our thoughts when we're at a level 5, 6, 7 on that 0 to 10, and we get up to 8, 9, or even 10 of that intensity scale, self-talk doesn't matter. But if we can catch it, we're on that 0 to 6 scale of us, kind of that self-talk, that kind of ramping ourselves up, becoming angry, this is unfair, getting that frustration. If we can catch that and reframe that, right? And even stop those thoughts, because stopping is kind of what it sounds like, is literally engaging with your own thoughts and stopping it and saying, no, stop. Like, you're doing the thing, you're pushing yourself to a place where you're going to be more angry. This is not going to be helpful for this match, the next match, and the remainder of the tournament. And if I get too angry, I might act out. And if I act out, then I'm going to be banned from the tournament, potentially the hobby and the sport as a whole. So again, catching yourself inside of that range. And I always encourage people, do some self-reflection, like on a normal day-to-day basis. Check in, be like, where am I at in that 0 to 10 scale of emotional intensity? Am I at a 2 right now? Cool. If I'm at an 8, okay, I got to do some things to bring it way back down. Catching it before it gets to a high level of intensity is the key to managing those emotions effectively. So again, thought stopping is just literally engaging with your thoughts and stopping them from going down a path that's going to magnify or intensify that anxiety. We can use some cognitive reframing skills, right? That is, we reframe the thought of the cognition we had. Again, that can look like, I suck at this sport. Wow, I'm really in a drought, and I really got to find some strategies to get outside of this drought. It can be like, oh, that person cheated me. You could say, okay, this match was unfair, but what am I going to do in my next match so I can be the best competitor I can be, right? You don't even necessarily have to change the whole thought, but it's about tweaking the thought to move from a self-destructive place to a productive space, right? We're reframing that idea of like, this is unfair, but I'm still going to be the best competitor I can be. I'm going to still be respectful. I'm still going to be kind and caring to the person across from me. Maybe even if they're being rude to me and disrespectful to me, I can use those cognitive reframing skills to kind of reframe the scenario so I can act inside of my morals and values, so I can continue competing in a fashion that I'm going to be happy and pleased with. And then there's radical acceptance. All radical acceptance is is a way for us to decrease the level of intensity of the emotion. So I'll use this example a lot of times with radical acceptance is if I have to eat a whole bowl of broccoli per se, if I spread that broccoli out through 10 times in a day, right, that's 10 times I'm having to eat something I don't like versus eating it all at once. Yeah, it's going to suck all at once, but I can get it over with and I can move on, right? So maybe in those matches are a bad matchup where I'm just making all the mistakes, maybe we don't prolong those matches. Maybe we just go, okay, this is going to be what it is. I'm not saying give up and scoop, but maybe that is what we do. Maybe we just say, okay, I got to step away because my intensity of my emotion right now is preventing me from playing effectively. And if I keep doing that, I'm going to act inappropriately. So I need to step away. And the next is understanding those physical cues. And that's a part of that, checking into that 0 to 10 scale, right? Do I have physical cues that tell me that I'm getting to a high level of intensity of emotion, right? Am I starting to sweat? Am I starting to shake? Am I starting to, my heart rate start to increase? My blood pressure starting to increase? What physical sensations is my body experiencing? And those need to be cues to how I need to respond cognitively and behaviorally. So how I engage with my thoughts and what do I do with my body. The next is some behavioral cues. Am I starting to become a little more agitated? Am I moving my hands more? Am I shaking my leg? What am I doing physically? Again, emotional cues. Am I starting to panic, worry? I've noticed that anxiety or anger rising inside of me. And then the cognitive cues. What is my brain doing? Am my mind racing? Am I being stuck in a thought loop? What am I doing? What am I doing mentally? So being aware of those cues and where they mean on that scale from 0 to 10. Again, that ties into that recognizing stressors, right? Reflecting, keeping yourself underneath that 8 out of 10 scale. You can use those grounding skills. Like in the last video, we talked about diaphragmatic breathing, 4 to 5 seconds in through the nose, holding for 1 second, 4 to 5 seconds out through the mouth, right? Counting is really important to kind of help reduce. There's also other grounding skills. I'm going to make a video just talking about some basic grounding skills that, for educational purposes that people, if you feel like you and your provider feel like it would be good for you to try, use to help you, could use those. I'm going to put a video out with just utilizing those, but there's tactile grounding, which is touch. There's the diaphragmatic breathing or the calm breathing we already talked about. So there's multiple kind of grounding skills we can use, and you always can kind of Google some grounding skills. There's going to be a whole plethora list, and everyone's body's a little different. So, finding the one that you and maybe your medical or mental health provider feels like could be best for you can be a great opportunity. But the goal is to keep it under that 8. As soon as we're over that 8, we're really not as in control as we think we are anymore. The emotion, the intensity is kind of taken over. So making sure we stay underneath that 8 is going to be key to managing this intensive emotion. And maybe that is I need to step away for a second. Maybe that is I need to take a few moments to take some deep breaths, and maybe I just let my competitor know, hey, I need to take a quick breath right now just to bring this intensity down. Most people, I think, would respect that. And respond instead of react, right? What does that mean? I mean, step away, call a judge if you need to. Stepping away means, if I just didn't say, hey, this competitor and me it's increasing in the intensity of the conflict, I'm going to step away and take the loss on this because I don't want to act outside of my morals and values, because I don't want this one match to ruin my whole tournament experience. Or calling a judge over to help the judge mitigate the situation, right? Before it gets to a level of intensity that the judge has a hard time mitigating both people at the table. Lowering your voice instead of yelling, right? Being that self-aware. What can I do to respond better to the situation instead of reacting to the situation? Because the reaction means I'm being in the defensive posture versus being in the proactive posture to de-escalate the situation. And then after you walk away after the match, doing something in your body. You just had cortisol, and that was a stress hormone, and you had adrenaline pumping through because of the intensity. You need to burn off a little bit of those neurotransmitters, those body hormones in our body, and what we really need to do. More neurotransmitters, but we really need to move our body to kind of get that out of our system. Well, they are hormones, but anyways. Move our body and get our body to a place where we can decrease some of that intensity, we can flush some of that out of our system, especially some of the adrenaline, because that gets in, raises the heart rate, gets us going. Move your body, being physically active, burning some of that energy off between rounds. Don't just go sit and think, because then we're going to be stuck. Move your body, go for a walk, do something. Use a grounding technique. That's a great opportunity also to engage in some stretching and a walk, or and once that's done, maybe a little meditation or grounding skill. Great opportunity to get our mind back in the right place to enter the next match. So those can be, and then those can be a great building blocks to having a plan. Have your anger control plan, which is a personalized plan for you. Try things out, figure out what works for you, and then go with that. Have the plan. When I get angry, this is how I'm going to respond to it. Having a plan before things get bad always is easier to respond to than trying to come up with a plan on the fly. So have an anger control plan. If you know yourself and you know that you tend to get more angry than not, and even at the end of the match, how are you going to recover from that? Do you need to go for that walk? Do you need to use that meditation mindfulness? Do you need to stretch? What do you need to do to get your body and your mind back centered to go into the next match effectively? So know your plan, have your plan, so when you need it, you can implement it. Because it's always better to have a plan and not need it than the opposite. And then next, if you feel like this is becoming someplace that you can't manage, can't control, please get help. There's resources on Psychology Day, findsupport.gov, American Psychological Association, American Psychiatric Association, all can help find mental health providers for you. We also have any crisis lines if you ever feel like you're at a place of crisis that you need to get support. That's 988 on any phone for a crisis line. And if you're a veteran, you can hit 1 and talk to the Veterans Crisis Line. Again, know your plan, try out some skills, try out some of the things, some of the skills that are out there to manage these intensive emotions. See if it helps for you. See if it helps improve your response, whether it be the intensity and duration of your anger, to a place where you feel like it's manageable. And in our next video, I'll probably be addressing a little bit more in realms to different kind of mindfulness-based skills that can help decrease some of that intensity. But I gave a few today that are great resources, and I encourage people to try those out if they feel like it's appropriate for them, or their provider feels like it's appropriate for them. But thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you all the next time.